Showing up as live. Are you sure? Yeah, we are now. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another special edition of In the Air Tonight. As you can see from the title screen, we've got Eric, Jamie, and a special guest, Harry, who we've just been introduced to. And but I won't spoil that. Sounds like they've got an awful lot to take us through this evening. So I'm going to hand over to, I think, Eric or Jamie. I'm not sure who's kicking off, but coming up as live. Are you sure? Yeah, we are now. Fantastic. Well, yeah, we've got some feedback coming in the background there, but I'll pass over to you both. And yeah,
you're going to mention about questions.
Yes,
we can do.
Yes, if anybody's got any questions for the panelists tonight, if you can just type those in the question and answer section, please. And by all means, use the chat for general comments. Right, over to you guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Andy. So yeah, I guess very quick intro from us. As you can see on the screen, we're the British Drone Racing Association, BDRA. It underwent a name change a couple of years ago, but this is what we're called now. It probably rolls off the tongue a little bit easier. My name's Eric Liku. I'm on the left there. I've been RC enthusiast for as long as I can remember, but an aero modeler for probably the past 15 years, which doesn't sound like a long time, but in the world of drones, it's an absolute age. And I'll show you some of my early drones in a later slide, and you'll be shocked at the state of them. We've also got, as Mark mentioned, Harry Holmes, special guest. Those of you who are drone racers will recognise the name because he was at pretty much every event last year. He's our current UK reigning British champion. And of course, Jamie, who's also on the BDRA committee. He'll give himself a little introduction, I think.
Yeah. Evening, everyone. So my name is Jamie Cole. I'm the technical director, I believe, for the BDRA. I sort of grew up around aero modeling. My grandfather was a big aero modeler when he retired, and I got into the drone world in about 2016. So I've been organising FPV racing events since the year after that, 2017, mainly covering the Southwest area in South Wales. And also joining us in a later slide, we've got Harry Holmes, who's the current UK 2020 champion for drone racing. So back over to you, Eric.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Jamie. So yeah, a bit about BDRA. As I say, we're a fairly young organisation, kind of seconds old, I think, I guess, in the kind of annals of history of BMFA. We became a specialist body in 2015, I believe, which was also the same year that we actually formed as a association. Again, if you're a drone racer, you'll probably recognise that the main thing we do is organise the British League and the British Championship. But to kind of wider aero modelers and also kind of new blood into the sport, we do a lot more than that. I would say the vast majority of contacts we get through our website are people asking for, where's my local club? How can I get involved? How do I start with drone racing? Can you recommend, some kit, some people, some ways to practice? So, we help a lot of people find clubs. And we also help clubs themselves. So, I've personally set up 2 little kind of local clubs with drone racing, get them started, stopwatches and jumpers for goalposts, that kind of thing. But then, yeah, we go all the way up to things like the National League, the National Championship, and we kind of we look after the race organisers community as well, because it's still a small association. We can't do all of these events by ourselves. So we depend on a lot of support from other race organisers, and we give them as much support as possible to get as many events running up and down the country. And then I suppose lastly, as the specialist body, for the big kind of international events, there is such a thing as Team GB for drone racing. So we are responsible for team selection as and when we decide to send a team abroad. So yeah, I mean, the like delivering slides, but we'll give you something to look at whilst we talk at you. So yeah, first of all, a very, very brief history of drones. And again, don't want this to be a history lesson, but they are, they haven't been around for a long time, but they have advanced massively. Drone light shows. Anyone saw the New Year's Eve one this year, COVID safe? That was all done by drones. These kind of drone shows, kind of in combination with fireworks, getting quite popular. Not racing drones. They're not even kind of DJI Phantom type drones. They're kind of dedicated kind of light show drones. Again, like the webinar that Chris gave last week, a lot of people think of drones and they think of these things, which these things are amazing. They're flying tripods. Take it up to position, get your shot, and then bring it back down again. Pretty much flies itself. Again, not what a racing drone is. How did we get to drones being what they are today? I'd had a dig around in my garage. The reason why I'm kind of looking around in my workshop is because I've got everything that I've laid out in front of me. It's kind of almost Blue Peter style. But I scoured my garage and I found my original post on Facebook where I posted this contraption, which was 2011. So 10 years ago. And this is not the first drone I built. It's just the oldest drone I could find in my garage. This thing is a tricopter, as you can see there. So we've got 3 motors. And the thing on the end that controls attitude is, or yaw rather, is a servo. So there's not even that many kind of clever electronics in there. None of your fancy kind of DJI controller boards or anything. It's all run off kind of helicopter gyros. But it flew, amazingly well for 10 years ago. And a lot of drones kind of started with people just playing with toys like this. And then, of course, DJI came along. They recognized that the market was there. And, again, this is kind of between homebrew stuff and kind of phantom camera ships. We started getting things like this. This is I can't remember what it's called, QAV 500, I think. So you could buy the airframe as a kit, buy the motors, at the time, stupidly expensive. So they can see better.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I've got the control to do that. It might be an Andy thing.
I might have to show them later during the Q&A again.
Yeah.
But yeah, the thing I wanted to...
You need to stop sharing your screen, because your screen.
If I stop sharing it, yeah.
Window.
Yeah, that's better.
That's it. And then if people want to see it fully, they go to speaker view. Then you'll fill up the whole screen.
That's it.
Right. So this is a really early camera ship. It does have, you just about see through there, the little flash of orange, which is a DJI NASA. So well before Phantoms, well before Inspires, well before Mount quadcopter, and it pretty much flies itself. Got yourself a little GPS puck there. That's the thing that makes it stay in the sky. And back in those days, most of us had a GoPro stuck on the front with some kind of fancy gimbal to kind of even out the wobbling. But yeah, again, not a racing drone, but you can see the kind of aluminium carbon fiber kind of structure starting to take place. It's also massive. You don't want to get hit by one of those. Yeah, and then I say DJI came along, they kind of revolutionized the whole kind of off-the-shelf drone industry, a bit like Apple. Too late, unfortunately, I had several already, but this is one of my more recent DJI drones. Pretty much every bit as capable as that other monstrosity I showed you, but fits in the palm of my hand. So yeah, camera on the front, 4 props, exactly the same principle, but much better software. Again, some people might kind of see that and think it looks a bit like the racing drones that you see on TV. They are much more advanced. They don't have, and this is a common misconception, they don't have stabilization. They don't fly themselves. The DJI ones I mentioned before, stick them up in the sky, take your hands off the sticks, it will stay where it is until you decide to bring it down and give it another instruction. Racing drones, and I'm going to kind of show my age a little bit here. This
Vortex.
is
I've got
one
a
of the
slightly
original
newer one here as well,
Vortex
Eric.
immersion RC ones. It's actually, if you can see that, an X-Blades one. So this is one of the ones that went to Dubai and back. But yeah, you can start seeing that this is a little bit more kind of race drone like. No stabilization in these things. They're performance machines. They're meant to go fast. So yeah, I mean, drone racing. How do we get from building these kind of big things to racing drones? So even if you go back to this thing, it wasn't very long after I built this that I did what everyone else did, which is strap a little camera to the front. And then you look at the video off the camera and you think, of course, you go and look on eBay and you find cameras that have video transmitters in them. And, one thing leads to another. Next thing you know, you're flying off a little security TV camera, little security TV system, and you're kind of, so yeah, we're back on the slide deck here. Yeah, I mean, a good comparison I often use, and you'll hear me use this when people kind of ask me about this, is that, if a racing drone were an F1 racing car, then the kind of thing that you can buy from I won't talk about Middle of Lidl, they were in Lidl not so long ago, but those little toy drones, they're your average city runabout. They're not they're not kind of performance machines, whereas racing drones really are built for performance. Nothing is on that machine that doesn't need to be there. So it's almost like a ruthless kind of cutting out of excess weight. So racers will build their machines, they'll handcraft them. Again, this is quite an old one, half a prop missing. They'll build these things and they'll tune them to what they want to get out of the machine, whether it's flat out speed, whether it's maneuverability, we talk about whether it's locked in or not. So yeah, sorry, did you get a good view of that? This is, again, it's quite old, no one flies these anymore. I think that's,
yeah, I've got a slightly newer one here as well. Oh,
Killer Baby D.
there you go. So this one's been built in about the last year, I think. So yeah, this is more what's classed as a freestyle quad, just with the longer body, whereas the racers tend to be a lot smaller and lighter to be more agile. Okay.
Yeah, so one of the kind of distinctions I want to make is that I'm not saying that all those kind of other camera ships and things are bad. We've all got them. We've all come through the same kind of journey in our kind of aero modeling short careers, but they have different purposes, right? So yeah, racing drones, it's about that kind of feeling of speed, and once you're actually in the camera, when you're looking at your goggles, looking at your screen, you can sense the speed of this machine flying around. I think that's the kind of key difference. That's the thing that kind of draws people in. So yeah, again, you ask most pilots what it's like, and they'll say something along the lines of, it feels like you're in the pilot's seat, it feels like you're flying. Imagine that in-camera view that you see on Formula One, but then suddenly there's like a vertical climb and then some 3D obstacles that you have to navigate. Yep. That sense of freedom of being able to fly around in all three dimensions at speed is just, it's exhilarating. And all the pilots that I've ever spoken to have said that is the draw, that is the thing that makes them come back and want to go over and over again. So these machines, the point I'm trying to make here is that they are performance aircraft. They are, they're not toys. They require a lot of skill to build, and a lot of concentration to fly. Which is why, if you look at that bottom left corner there, most races look like people have who've just kind of slumped down into picnic chairs and fallen asleep. It's not. They're all wearing goggles and they're kind of intensely concentrating on the flight. But as an observer, it's like, is this a mass gathering of people falling asleep in chairs in the park? So I think this is the point where Jamie, to give you a flavour of what it's like to be flying one of these things, is going to attempt to fly around his house.
Yeah, that's a fair assumption, I think. Yeah, so these are the typical set of goggles that we use. So these are from a company called Fat Shark. So they've got 2 small screens inside there, obviously one for each of your eyes. You've got a little bit of adjustment on the bottom there, so you can try and get it lined up to try and get as good a picture as possible for when you're flying. So then we get the direct feedback then from the drone that we're flying. So the one I'm going to attempt to fly, and I say attempt because it's been months, and I probably should have done some more practice before this, is this one. So this is a Tiny Hawk. It's actually a really good little starter drone as well. These can be picked up for something like this can be picked up for around the 50 to £90 mark, just the drone. And as you can see, it's got a camera here. It's got your 4 motors and 4 props, although very tiny. Flight controller and all your video transmission is hidden away. You can't really see it even underneath here. Yeah, it's sort of hidden underneath the battery pack here. What was that called? So this is a Emax Tiny Hawk. So this is the original Tiny Hawk. I've got several others, but yeah, really good little craft. So I'll get this plugged in and I'll switch over to the feed. Okay, so you should be able to still see me. So this is actually the view from the Tiny Hawk now. And I will whack some goggles on and let's see what we can do. You might hear the dog barking downstairs because he hates it. So standard radio that you're all used to using. So this is a Radio Master, but very standard. Okay, check that I can arm, all good. Right, let's put some goggles on. Okay, let's see what happens. Oh no.
Oh,
That's awful,
disaster.
Straight away. Right, let's see if I can get back up. Right, here we go. We're good. So as you can see, these things can take quite a tumble, sucking into everything in my house. This is not working very. It's hung on that gate now, I think.
We knew it was going to be a brave.
Yeah, see,
life.
it was fine earlier, wasn't it? But you know, typical. Right, here we go. Let's come back up. So as you can see, you can get nice little LED lit gates that are nice and clear through the camera that you can see. So this has got a slight stabilized mode on it, but like you can see, it doesn't really stop you from crashing as I demonstrated. So this is in sort of stable mode. So this is good for flying indoors. All right, let's see if I can get a bit farther now. I've got my feeling in a bit more. There we go. So as you can see, even when the weather's bad, you can still set up little tracks inside your house and do things like this. just to keep your muscle memory in.
Yeah, so obviously indoors we don't get the benefit of being able to fly too fast without crashing into stuff. But we're going to have some videos a bit later on, some of which by Harry as well. So you'll see the difference when we're flying outdoors.
Okay, yeah. Apologise for the chonky flying. I really should have practiced a bit more, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of the feed. And anyway.
Oh, well done there, I thought.
Okay. Right, let's see where we are next.
Normally everybody says don't try this at home, but actually I think you've got to try this at home. This
Yeah,
is
no,
got to be done.
absolutely. Like you could, like, if my dog wasn't so het up by it, literally I plug it in and he hears those startup beeps and he's there and he's trying to catch it straight away. So as you can see with my flying, it never really works very well. And it always ends up with a camera feed the inside of his mouth usually. So anyway, right. So hopefully you can see the screen share again now. So how did drone racing start? So really it started in sort of forest areas like this. As you can see, I'm just going to show a little show reel here in the background. So it started in sort of forest areas, taking advantage of trees and natural obstacles. So this is sort of what got a lot of us, I would say, into the hobby. Just seeing these videos and thinking, yeah, you know, I really want to go at this. It's sort of taking back to that Star Wars scene of the little teddy bears on their
Murder bears
going through the forest. Teddy bears. But yeah, no, yeah. So this is just a little video of some very early drone racing, and as you can see, there's lots of spinning, lots of crashing out. But yeah, it gives you a little bit of an idea of where our initial inspiration came from.
Yeah, I think a lot of us kind of saw this and had the same idea at the same time, which is that this does feel like being in that scene in Star Wars. And
yes, absolutely,
you know, let's go and find some trees to fly around. Let's go and find some obstacles to fly around.
Yeah.
And it was only then like there's a very short leap from there to basically try and encourage you know, all the other members in the club. You know, I remember going into our club and saying, look what we just built, and we can fly around goalposts, we can fly around trees. Let's go and find some woodland to go and fly these around it. And then before long, we had, you know, a small group of club members who are, you know, every weekend.
We'll move on now.
Yeah, let's try another slide. You know, setting up tracks. Yeah, in fact, this is one of our kind of really early events. You know, the tracks were made out of UPVC tubing and ripstop nylon that we bought off eBay. You know, sometimes when you can save up enough, you can buy some of those kind of marketing flags, stick those in the ground. Usually pretty good for visibility, better than a bit of UPVC pipe. But again, you know, our first races were done with stopwatches and trust. And that's all you need to start, really. If you get a group of 3 mates together and you say, right, let's fly 3 laps around this track, get one person to start a stopwatch, first one back wins. And just keep doing it over and over. And that's, you know, that's practice, that's kind of improving your racing and just getting better at flying, which is how we all started. Yeah. And then it wasn't long before we realized, with the power of Facebook and other social media, that, you know, certainly back, I mean, quite a lot of these were, I'd say these are kind of around 2016, 2017 kind of time. You know, you could, as a race organizer, you could advertise a race one weekend and have 60 pilots turn up the following weekend. And like every event was like this. This is 3 separate events here that we've got photos from. You know, we try to get a photo of all the pilots before they go home at the end of the day. And, you know, we were shocked, but also pleasantly surprised at how much take up the sport had got. You know, we fly in fields, and in the winter, as Jamie says, we go indoors. We found quite a few indoor sports centres, like leisure facilities, where they've got you know, badminton courts or tennis courts. They're willing to hire out the entire thing for us, and we just run an event in there. I actually used to run a Christmas party race down in near Brighton somewhere, and that was really, really popular. You know, despite it not being a league race, despite it not having any significance to, you know, the championship, you could advertise that, and you'd get 70 pilots all clamoring for space, and we'd sell out in minutes. So it's definitely caught the imagination. And as I say here, it's especially amongst the younger generation of aero modelers as well, because, you know, it's not that different from computer games, except it's outdoors.
So this is another video here. So this was from the Western Park race in 2015. So this was, we believe, one of the first official races to be put on. So if you sort of take the note of flying here, and you'll see in a later slide how things have come on and how tracks and track gear has evolved over time. So the British FPV Racing League, as it started out in its first incarnation, was founded in 2015. And it was applied for and granted specialist body status that same year. So as I said, Western Park was the first BFPVRL race event. So a bit of a mouthful. So this first race actually was attended by about 10 pilots, which is unheard of now. You'll get a minimum of a dozen pilots just to a social fun fly now. The last race at Western Park attracted, I think it was almost 70 pilots, and it oversold. The pilots came from all over Europe, and the event sold out in 42 seconds. It was absolutely, it was almost a competition in itself to get a place. So it's just really shown how popular it has become, and it's only going to get bigger.
Yeah, so as Jamie says, the attendance of the races started rocketing skyward, and it almost became a bit of a technological arms race to be able to meet the expectations of these races. Yeah. So, you know, it's not just the technology in the drones that had to step up. We couldn't use stopwatches anymore because, you know, the drones were flying faster, they were getting smaller, they were difficult to see, and the tracks were getting smaller and tighter as well. So it's difficult to you know, with a stopwatch to measure that kind of fraction of a second of who crossed the line first. So we moved to more technological solutions. You know, lap timing systems have existed for long before drone racing started. And I remember us dusting off an old RC car timing system for some of our early races. And just figured, well, we used to race cars with these. Why don't we just stick them on drones and see if we can get the computer to count the laps? And, you know, it was crude, but it worked.
Yeah.
And it worked for a long time. As I say, a long time, you know, a couple of years, but that's a long time in drone years.
Until they got too fast, wasn't it, Eric?
Pretty much, yeah. We exceeded the capability of infrared light.
Yeah, absolutely. So then really the sort of game changer in timing that came out for us was this little beast, which is the Immersion RC 8-way timer. So you can see inside there, it's got 8 video receivers. So basically how the timing is done is it's looking for the peak of the video signal where it passes the gate. So basically we chuck this piece of kit under the gate, and when the drone passes over it, it's looking for the pilot on a particular channel, and that triggers a lap in our timing system software. Obviously this is a commercial grade one you can just buy off the shelf, plug it in, and with a little bit of self-learning with the software, you're up and away. But there's also home built versions too, so we'll talk a bit more about those later.
Yeah, the brilliant thing about that is that we could now count laps without the pilots having to do anything different. All the equipment was already on their drone. It detected your video signal.
Yeah.
So if you had no video signal, you weren't racing anyway. If you're using the wrong channel, then you shouldn't be racing anyway. All your laps get allocated to someone else. So it kind of used the natural capabilities of the drones already to count them.
Yeah. No, it really was a changer. And also when this started out, the only VTXs that were available were of a 200 milliwatt power, and trying to get 6 pilots in the air with 200 milliwatt power just wasn't going to happen. So as soon as the first 25 milliwatt VTX came out, was suddenly when we could get 6 pilots in the air, which I think, Eric, you were one of the first ones to do that, weren't you, I believe, with 6 pilots?
Well, yeah, I mean, we had to solve the problem of managing to run racing for more than 3 pilots at a time. If you're going to have 60, 70 pilots turn up per day, you need to give more race time to them. So I know James just kind of flipped away, but the middle image on the previous slide, the significance of that is that's the first photo of an actual start grid of an actual race with 6 pilots on the start grid who managed to take off, who managed to run the entire race without interference. And then as Jamie says, major cause for that was everybody finally realizing, and us proving at that event, that the way to do that is for everyone to be a bit more sensitive about overflowing and blowing the frequency band. Everyone being limited to 25 milliwatt, everyone being instructed to select a precise frequency that was known not to interfere with anyone else. And since then we've been able to run much bigger races, more pilots, which much more racing. So it's kind of win-win. Everyone benefited from that.
Yeah. So you can see here in this slide, so there's a picture there of the timer I've just shown you. Live time and rotor hazard are some commonplace timing software. Actually, rotor hazard is a timing system too that you can actually build from parts. So for somewhere between, again, 50 and 80 pounds, you can build yourself your own race timer from parts. And that final image there, live streaming has really become commonplace for us. We're quite lucky with the technologies that have been developed for us, and with a bit of homebrew messing about, we can now actually put out quite a decent feed out to YouTube, Facebook, all the other social media sites on a race day, so that pilots or enthusiasts or other interested parties can see the racing going on, see all 6 pilot feeds over the internet. And it's really good as well for the race directors. So if there's anything else, if there's any decisions that need to be made and they need to look back at footage, that's really good, rather than having to look in individual pilots' goggles. So it has become a hotbed of tech, really, over time.
Yeah, modern races are almost like little kind of TV show productions, aren't they?
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
we have
really getting to that point.
Camera cuts from drone to drone. We often have someone comparing and talking to the pilots and just kind of chatting about the day. big competitions, there's a lot of waiting around in between races. So, pulling all that together and making it consumable for spectators has become part of the sport.
Yeah. So I think it was Weston Park in 2019 for those of you that attended there and wandered up the hill to the drone racing. We had a massive TV screen with the live stream feed going to that, and we had various different drone racers hosting that throughout the day in between doing their actual races. So general components of a racing drone. So the top picture here, we've got a drone from probably 2 or 3 years ago now, where everything was kind of individual components sort of spread out. As you can see, the ESCs there, we've got out on the arms, and a sort of very simple stack inside. And you've got the other image here, which is of a modern drone. As you can see, the ESCs have disappeared off the arm, and that's now a 4-in-1 board. So you've got 4 ESCs on one board, which just makes the build a lot neater. As you may be able to see, the flight controller in there is now not a 30 by 30 size, it's a 20 by 20. So as the text come on, as everything does, it gets smaller, more compact, lighter. And obviously the lighter you can make a drone, that's going to have a direct correlation to the speed and handling and all of those characteristics as well. So it isn't too dissimilar really to building an electric plane. Some of the components are very similar, and some even translate over, as you'll be able to see shortly. So this is some of the gate equipment we use. So this is the sort of more modern inflatable gate equipment that you'll see used at the larger events. Yes, it's kind of to model some of the early gates used at events were literally metal cheese graters or drone graters. As such, if you flew into them at the wrong angle, your drone would come out in well, hundreds of pieces sometimes. So these are a lot kinder. They're highly visible through the pilot goggles too. So really easy to see through their feed. And obviously it opens up opportunities for sponsorship for the banner wraps around them too. Over to you, Eric.
Yeah, so topic I touched on a little bit earlier as well, but drone racing combines quite a lot of skills, and mostly not just turn up at a shop, buy something, and then be in the air by the afternoon. And a lot of our pilots came from other disciplines, both flying and outside of model flying. If you see some of our pilots flying kind of shockeys or pattern ships, you'll see that we have a lot of experience in the air sports sector. It's not just drones. And then of course, I think helicopters was probably in a similar boat a few years ago. It was like the new sport to the hobby, and a lot of us came from helicopters because they were the last fad that we jumped onto. But yeah, as Jamie has kind of pointed out, building a drone, to be a serious drone racer, you need to be able to kind of customize that machine. So you need to be able to understand what everything's doing, from the electronics to how you want it to behave, how you want it to feel in the air. All of that stuff is customizable, and you can dial that in, as a pilot. And then some pilots have gone further than that and actually developed their own airframes as well. Get them cut out of carbon fiber, build their own airframes. Yeah, I mean, Jamie's just going to flip briefly onto the next slide there. gaming. I mentioned there in point 2 that gaming is a big factor. We attract a lot of pilots from the gaming community, and we had quite a successful few years partnering with the people who run Insomnia, which is Europe's largest gaming festival. And you can see the production values that they put into this. But we were at the NEC in Birmingham for several years in a row on this kind of multi-day, kind of super long weekend event where they gave us entire halls to set up tracks and basically race. And this was streamed straight into the big halls of gamers who were all then kind of clamoring to oh, where's this? Where can I see that? And they kind of make their way over to the spectator area. They watch a couple of races and they, oh, that looks just like that computer game, that video game that I play. I'll have a go. And we had quite a few of the sim manufacturers present at the show as well. And we gave the gamers the opportunity to have a go. Nothing got crashed irreversibly. It was all on a sim, but we attracted a lot of people who subsequently either joined the association or turned up at race events, and were seriously asking, how do we get involved in this? The cheeky remark that I kind of made earlier, the most appealing aspect of parents is that it's just like those computer games that your kids play, but you can send them outside to do it. You're learning kind of valuable skills whilst you're doing it. It is, in my view, it's kind of really kind of sparks the national interest.
Yeah. So this is a feed from Harry Holmes. So he's the current British champ, and we'll be speaking to him shortly. This was a feed from some of the racing. As you can see, the image may look a bit choppy to you, but that's because this is a sort of DVR recording from the analog feed. So it's not as slick as some of those feeds you've seen in the previous video. So it's dropping frames, but you can see how sort of accurate you've got to be to get round these tracks. So this is a inflatable track, and shortly I believe it will flip over to other track equipment that we use. So this is a sort of PVC pipe covered in sort of fabric or foam. So as you can see, there's very varied tracks that are put out. Okay, these are some images from a typical race day. So as you can see here, we've got sort of young to the older generation here. So we do have a whole range of ages and backgrounds of people, and it's really good to see them all sort of mingling together at race day. Everybody helps each other. If somebody needs a part so they can get back in the air and fly, somebody needs help tuning, fixing, repairing, whatever to get back in the air. It's really great. So Harry, if you can flick your camera on. Hi. So we're just going to do a little bit of an interview with Harry. So Harry, how did you get into FPV racing and the sport and hobby?
So I started out like a lot of people with 3D helis, and obviously that was really expensive. Every time you crashed, it was obviously cost something. So I think it was 2016 Western Park, and there was a drone race going on, and there were people like Luke Bannister and stuff racing there. And as soon as I watched it, I just wanted to get one straight away. So I got my first drone on the day there. And yeah, from there, learned how to build it, learned how to tune it. And luckily, I managed to find a local club near me and just practiced every weekend. And yeah.
Yeah. So was it Luke that inspired you initially then, Harry?
Yeah, it was definitely the person that was winning all the races and definitely the one on top. And you definitely, he was the one to look up to and you wanted to race. So yeah.
so now you're kind of going to races and beating him. So yeah, so who's kind of inspiring you right now, would you say, to push harder?
There's now a top pilot that's in Korea. He's called Min-chan.
Yeah.
He's definitely the one that everyone watches. Everyone just tries to analyze and everything. He's winning all the races, so he's definitely a person that I'd love to race and stuff like that. And just like to race and that. Yeah, so he's probably the person I'm definitely aiming towards now.
Yeah, definitely. And finally, what keeps you participating in drone racing? What keeps you coming?
Yeah, so no matter how many races you do, there's always that adrenaline rush every fight, especially in the final. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if you're going to have a mid-air. You don't know if you're going to have any technical issues. But you just don't know what's going to happen. And also the technical side of it too. Like, technology in this space is just advancing at such a pace. Like, 1 minute you do a setup for the season, and then a month later there's a totally new thing out that you just want to get. So so it's just a fast-paced thing. Yeah.
No, that's brilliant, Harry. Thank you.
No worries.
Okay, this is just a quick feed of obviously we saw some stellar flying from Harry. This is a feed from one of our other top pilots of when it goes wrong. So this is the sort of tumbling footage you get when you clip something and fly off into the ground usually. So this is when it doesn't go so right.
So yeah, every pilot goes through this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I dare say Harry's got his own compilation of crash videos. So it's worth bearing in mind that you see these amazing videos on YouTube, and if you're kind of thinking of joining the sport and trying it out, that how am I ever going to be that good? Well, remember that every video on YouTube has been carefully selected.
Absolutely.
It's the best of all the videos on your SD card.
Yes.
Unless you're making a video like this. So, but the thing is, as a bunch of racers, we're a really friendly bunch. We're a really close-knit community.
Yeah.
As Jamie said earlier, we help each other out. If people have problems, we try to get them racing, because it's a hollow victory if you win against someone who's got a broken machine. Yes. So everyone wants to get everyone in the race, so that when you win, you properly won. No excuses.
Okay, so Eric, this one's you as well. So this is
this
DSI?
is DSI, which in this particular year, 2019, was held in Korea. I don't know if it's actually held in Korea every year, actually, but this is a big international event. It's invitation only. They ask every kind of drone representative association in every country to send a team. So BDRA held a team selection event. I think it was Western that year. And we sent a team over. I have to confess I've forgotten where they placed, but they seemed pretty happy in that photo. So I think they did pretty well.
Yeah, I think that was the previous year, I think, because they're in different tops.
Oh, good
spot. So yeah, I think we got a mismatch of the pictures there. But no, I think they did do relatively well. I'm sure somebody will tell us in the chat, Eric. Okay.
The biggie.
The biggie.
So this 2018 was the inaugural World Drone Racing Championship that was organized by the FAI. They awarded it to China, mainly because DJI sank an obscene amount of money into organizing this. And as you can see, complete with TV quality graphics. Excuse the drone. It's not a race drone, but their graphics department didn't know what one looked like. It was held in a stadium just outside of the city. Looked absolutely amazing. Shenzhen is known as the city of LEDs, and they light up the stadium, they light up the track. They treated all the competitors. I mean, look at the footage now. It's kind of like an Olympics opening ceremony, and it felt like that. That's how well they treated all the teams. Marched them out, had kind of flag bearers. kind of announced the teams as they went along. The entire opening ceremony took an evening by itself, and then that track as well. I mean, it's a little bit dated by these standards, but you've got to admit it looks amazing. And even when you're flying through it, it looks like nothing that we've flown before or flown since, because they put a lot of money into it. So yeah, as I say, the massive investment. It was in Shenzhen. They invited us all over. I was actually a judge at that event, and I got to witness it firsthand. It was on a scale that you would not believe. And the aspiration is for the BDRA to start sending Team GB to events like these. Yeah. And anyone can enter those team selection events. Anyone can put the practice in, put the time in, get to the top of their sport, and represent their country. So how cool will that be?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Right. Okay, so this is our final couple of slides before we get to your questions. But drone racers surprisingly don't just do drones. So many also build sort of complex fixed wing rigs with onboard automation. So kits such as these can be picked up from as little as £30 for the base sort of foam model. And most FPV pilots start out using spares from their aging quads build to supplement those build kits and get in the air, a single motor, a single 30 amp ESC, one of their old video transmitters and cameras, just hot glue it in the front a bit rough and fly. And then as they go on, they get flight controllers and GPS. So really the parts are interchangeable, and there's some really lovely rigs built. This one here is actually drones and fixed wing playing together in the air and sharing the airspace. It's a fantastic piece of video. So this model's known as a big drac. This is some footage from over the Welsh mountains, from a club that I spend quite a lot of time with. So as you can see, this is a drone carrying a GoPro. So this would be a race drone, and it's following the foam models. And yeah, I think you'd agree the footage is quite amazing. So if you've got a drone pilot at your BMFA club and you'd like to see your fixed wing models from these kind of angles, speak to them and say, look, could you film me? And I'm sure they would be more than willing to.
We all love to show off.
Yeah. Okay, and then when the weather gets bad and the nights draw in, as you can see, as I demonstrated earlier, we move indoors with these little things, and also into online simulator tournaments. So indoor tiny whoop racing, as you can see there, we set up in village halls with all the hoops and LED lights, still with the same technologies we use outdoors, just shrinking everything down. And also these online tournaments in the simulators have popped up that have become really popular, backed by the major manufacturers. And there's prizes and prize pots and all sorts. So you can really sort of keep your practice in and keep the hobby alive over those winter months as well. So finally, I think we've spoken enough. We're now to your questions.
There were a couple of questions that were sent through, actually.
Yeah, I've seen the Q&A.
Also, ahead of tonight's, I put them in the notes.
Okay.
So the first question was, I really like FPV cinematography and very much want to pursue in that. In terms of that, what are your thoughts on the DJI FPV drone? Is it good for beginners, and is it worth the price?
Well, I don't think either of us have seen one in the flesh, have we, Eric?
No, they're
It's
like
just been what's been going around the internet, really. I don't know. As for it being a beginner product, you're certainly not going to be able to throw it around like one of our custom built carbon race trains. I think that's something safe to say. I think it does have to be flown with a bit of care.
I don't know whether it has the traditional DJI kind of stability type stuff, but if it's meant to be flown like an FPV drone, then I can't see what it gives you on top of a Cinework, really. If anyone's seen that video that's gone viral this past couple of weeks of the bowling alley,
Yes.
that was filmed on a Cinework.
Yes.
And that would have been a lot cheaper than the DJI system.
Yeah. From what I've seen on the various YouTube videos this past week or two, the new DJI FPV one doesn't like it's not quite as bounceable as what you normally flying, shall we say?
No, I think that is safe to say, definitely.
I think bounceability is an important factor for them, isn't it?
Yeah, especially if you're starting out, especially like I can't sort of recommend these smaller things enough. Like this has survived me bashing into all sorts, and it has taken everything I have thrown at it. So definitely starting out with something like this is great. You can even fly it outdoors on a nice day. They will fly outdoors, but anything more than a light breeze, that they stop drifting. So yeah.
Clearly not trying hard enough. That's what happened to mine. I didn't see that background.
Yeah, I mean that was the second question actually. What drones would you recommend practicing on? I think that little tiny hawk is perfect. Similar ones, trash cans, modulars.
Yeah,
they're great for practicing indoors, and also don't be afraid to practice on the sim. They're pretty good these days, and although you don't get the same level of exhilaration, you get to practice and lock in that muscle memory for the next time you take your actual drone out, and hopefully it'll be a cheaper outing.
Yeah, so you can pick up, like if you've got sort of a large sort of spectrum transmitter or a Futaba or something, what's likely is you'll pick up something like this and it will be free sky. Now what you can do is, if you want a separate transmitter, you could buy something like this. So this is a jumper T light, so it's very much like a gamepad style. You can see how it's laid out. These are under £50, and they will even control your Spectrum and Futaba models. Like they've got what's called a 4-in-1 module. They will literally bind to pretty much anything. So they are an amazing piece of kit for a starter. You can plug them into the sim. So there's various different ones you can buy. This is just one of the most recent ones out. Plug them in via USB on the top, and you can be flying with a sim in minutes. So sort of something like this linked with that is perfect. You can pick yourself up a cheap pair of goggles for under £50 too. So for about 150 quid, you could easily be in the air and flying.
That's a massive game changer, right? Because other disciplines must suffer from this as well. The average member of the public wandering over and saying, "Oh, that's amazing! How do I get my my child interested in this?" And as soon as you say, "Well, it's a couple of £100 for the radio," and then they're not listening to the and then they're already thinking, "I can't afford that." Whereas £50 for a radio, that's kind of birthday present, Christmas present kind of territory. So it's a big game changer, and I would see that would apply to not just drone racing.
Yeah, so you can actually so Emax, the manufacturer of these, they actually do a whole kit with goggles, a very basic remote which you'd only ever be able to use with this. Charger, batteries, all that in one really nice case. I actually bought one for my nephew 1 year. I've seen those for sale for as little as £130 for the whole kit, ready to go. So yeah, it's really good starter.
Got just a question come through from James Sheldrick, and it's on a similar sort of thread, really. I mean, how do you find out where local drone FPV drone racing clubs are?
Well, up until recently, we had a map on our website that listed all of the drone clubs that were registered with us, but Google withdrew the API, and now it's showing a sad face. So we need to fix that.
Yeah.
We do have a list of all of the clubs around the country, and I think we worked out the other day that you're never that far away from a club.
No.
So get in touch with us, and we'll help you find your nearest club.
Yeah.
At least until we can get the map sorted on the website. And actually, that answers the follow-up question that was raised before this evening, which is where to get FPV training and lessons. Now, really, the best training is practice. So get yourself to a club, find some FPV racers, and just watch how they fly and learn. And practice makes up for everything. It's the 10,000 hours thing, if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, I mean, Christopher Barker is asking a slightly more technical question here, but how hard is it to configure the FPV goggles if you wear glasses all the time?
Yeah. So you can actually, so for this type of goggle, you can actually get diopters, which actually slide in front of the lenses. So if you're somebody that has sort of a normal reading glass prescription, you can just buy those off the shelf from Fat Shark. However, there are companies out there that will actually make those diopters to your prescription as well. So you can actually slide them right in there with your prescription. Obviously, that's a lot more expensive. But what a lot of people with glasses find is box goggles, and I'm hoping that's what Eric's gone to try and find. So if you go for a pair of box goggles, if you've not got a set, I think I know where a set are, Eric. I've got a set here. So that's where it's a single panel screen. They're a lot bigger. Obviously, it allows glasses, whereas for their glasses to inset, looks like Eric might have found his.
Yeah, so this is a pair of
Quantums.
Vipers.
Oh yeah, Viper, FXT Vipers. Yeah.
Vipers. So there's a lot more space in there for the glasses. I know it's dark in there, so you can't really see. One check the lights. So no, still super dark.
Yeah.
But essentially, there's a series of mirrors that then allow you to view a screen, which is just attached to the top. Your antenna on top of there. The screen just tunes into the same frequencies, and then this would fit on my face. That looks stupid, I'm sure, but I can keep my glasses on. It's fine. So what you tend to find at any of the big races, and certainly at nationals, I'll be carrying these things around the FPV drone racing track whilst racing's going on. So it means that anyone can just kind of quickly pop them on their head and have a look. You can get lots of different types of these. And in fact, I think the very first models used reversing camera screens. I think you can get them from Hobby King. So you can buy a kit to build on these. It's a big chunk of polystyrene foam. If you want to go real budget just to see if you like it. Definitely lots of opportunities.
Yeah, another question, Paul Bardot. Where would you start looking to buy the right gear?
Well, there is a plethora of places, and it all depends really. If you want backup service, really, and good, decent backup service, and how long you want to wait to get the stuff. So obviously, there's plenty of places you can buy from, sort of Chinese shops, things like that. But we do have a number of really good UK retailers They might be a quid or two more expensive, but you'll get it within a couple of days. And if you've got anything wrong, there's usually really experienced people who can help. So yeah, there is plenty of shops out there that will help and guide you to build your first drone. But yeah, not to single out individual shops, but you've got places like Hobby RC, Unmanned Tech. I'm trying to think, there's loads more. Harry, have you got anybody else you buy from regularly?
Quadcopters.co.uk.
Quadcopters, yeah.
Drone is live.
Drone is live. Thank you. Yeah.
That's it for me.
And there's a couple more popped up recently. But yeah, no, there are shops here. The kit is readily available, and as I said, you can have it in a couple of days and start building.
Thanks, Jamie. Lorenzo asked a question. Has the general setup and repair process simplified in the last 5 years? As I had quite a bit of trouble back in 2016.
Maybe this is a good one for Harry.
I mean, yeah, a lot. So basically, back in them days, everything was separate, everything was, and the firmware and everything was just complicated. But nowadays, it's much easier to set up. It's just like plugging a flight control into ESC. You just need the wiring harness. Like in the photo earlier on, the ESCs are just done in the stack as well. Yeah, a lot, and also the UK shops make it very clear, which parts you can get. So, and you definitely don't need as much parts as you needed back in them days. So yeah.
Thank you, Harry. There's obviously there's a backup question to that actually come from Ben May. What race quad kit would you recommend, and where do you recommend buying parts from? Well, you've covered part of that, but I mean, what sort of race kit would you suggest?
I mean, I could write down in the chat box like the specific parts I use, and also the different shops. So I'll probably do that.
Yeah.
Just to save time.
No, fantastic. We'll put that on for Ben and for others so they can all have a really good look at that. Brian Clayton's asked a question. So I can just register for any event. This is a follow up to where can I go flying, or when I can go flying for FPV events, for the drone racing rather events. Is that correct? I think so. I'm a member of the BMFA. Do I also need to join the?
Yeah, so the BFPVRA is the older name. It's the BDRA now.
That's right.
Yeah. That's one. The general question is the BMFA provides the flyer insurance. You don't necessarily need to join the BDRA to attend a race, but it will give you a discount. So all of our race organisers who are affiliated with us do give a discount. So it's only a very small amount of money to join every year. And if you attend 2 or 3 events, you'll see that money back instantly. So the question is, no, you don't have to join, but there's lots of pluses too.
Yeah, it's worth supporting the people that are putting on the events, isn't it? And that way you can have more events put on.
Exactly.
Another question here that's come up in the chat box. For newbies already looking at second and third quads, should we stick with analog video feed or go for the digital, thinking about compatibility at race meets? And that was from Rupert.
So this is something that we're looking into very much at the moment. It's probably not something we're going to bring in, I would say, until 2022, purely because of COVID restrictions. We just not had the chance to get this kit tested in a race environment yet. So if you're looking to race for 2021, I would say definitely stick with analog for the moment. But we are working to see how we can get this kit working, how we can get the digital kit working actually at a race meet, but that's going to take some time. Multi GP over in America, who are a massive race league. They've not managed to get it cracked yet. So obviously we'll be watching what they're doing closely too, as well as doing our own testing here in the UK.
Brilliant, thank you. Well, we've got through all of the questions. We've got there's some really good feedback from everybody. I mean, everybody's loving it. I think you're going to have to do a little bit of follow-up in terms of some Q&As on paper, but thank you, Harry, for that. Everybody's sort of very, very keen. Well, you've actually typed a lot of it in already, so you're ahead of the game, but it's we'll make all this available, can't we, Andy?
Yeah, if we can put together an information sheet, I can email it to everybody, and
yeah, that's fine. We can work on that.
Yeah, we'll get that sorted.
No, I have to say, just really very inspirational, guys. It's just fantastic. It looks like amazing fun, and I can't wait to watch it. I don't say I'm going to be having a go. I don't think I'm got the reflexes for it, but
I'd strongly recommend anybody get along to an event. They are a very, very friendly bunch, and the enthusiasm is really incredible. Back in, was it 2016 we did the Queen's Cup, Eric?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was 2016 when we got the Queen's Cup, and I was sort of coordinator for the event, and I was panicking 2 weeks to go because they hadn't opened up the entries yet. And I'm sort of putting emails out saying we need to start getting some entries in, and they were, you don't need to worry about that, it won't be a problem. And we opened up the entries, and it filled up in a couple of days for 48 people. It was unbelievable. So the enthusiasm is infectious, and they do things slightly differently, and it's great to see. So I'd strongly recommend people go along to a drone race.
No, it's fantastic. We better just do a plug. We could do a pug as well, but we'll try a plug for next week. I'm just checking the calendar because we've lost a little bit on here. I think we are on RC helicopters, so we're So I think I spun that one last week, so I was a week ahead. So RC helicopters next week, and that should be another fantastic instalment of In the Air Tonight. I think we'll wrap up. We've had a fantastic talk from you all, and just really like to thank you all, and you've really been inspirational. And feedback, you can read it yourselves. You're really on this. It's you got it sorted, and we're all learning an awful lot about it. And thank you. It really is good.
Thank you for having us.
And I hope you get a lot of pickup from a lot of the people who are watching today. And I say we'll make sure we get it on YouTube as well. So if anybody wants to play it back,
it's already there.
It's already there. So,
but yeah, it stays on because it's been broadcast live. So it's already on there.
Fantastic.
We ought to say thanks for joining us on YouTube, those that are there, and we'll see you for next week's session. And good night to those on YouTube.